Hello, welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this, it means you're either just getting into Total War, you're a fan of Total War, or you just wanted to see the video. In any case, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Without any further ado, we're just going to get into it. And today, we are going to go over how to play Queek Headtaker. Queek is this guy, this little rat demon right here. He's got a nice little pickaxe, sort of nice stabby stab combo. He is one of my favorite SKAVEN lords to play, mainly because he's a melee specialist as opposed to a spellcaster. Very heavily focused on dueling, which will be attributed in his faction effects as well as the lord effects. He gets plus 8% when fighting melee attack when fighting dwarves and greenskins, and that's to the entire army. And same for weapon strength. And then we do get a +2 to the menace below, which is just summoning clan rats, which is super awesome. Luckily, you start off with a couple of storm vermin, which are the tier 3 infantry of the SKAVEN. SKAVEN strength really comes in their weapons teams in late game, but we'll get into that later. You get a couple tier 1s, some missile units, and then Plague Claw catapults, which are really great in early game and in auto-resolve. This is Queek's starting position. Here, down in the depths near the Tomb Kings, you do have some vampires to deal with as well. A lot of dwarves, and the greenskins are going to be your main enemies, but you're going to run into lizardmen as well. He doesn't do so hot in frozen climates as well as temperate islands. He can't go into magical forests or oceans, or it's uninhabitable, I should say. He can go into it, but you'll take attrition. So that's like the groves and world trees of the wood elves for a magical forest for the most part. His lore, if you'd like to read it, pause here. He's a vicious little demon guy, but he can get targeted quite easily, as SKAVEN are typically, shorter in stature, and unfortunately just they are one of the main factions where you want quantity over quality, if anything, is just overwhelm your opponent, tire them out, instead of outright eliminating them. But anyways, we're going to get into his campaign, and we're going to go over on how to exactly play as SKAVEN in general, but more importantly as Queek Headtaker. Your most important goal, at least early game, is to get Karak 8 Peaks. It gives you a pretty decent buff faction-wide, and then holding Karak 8 Peaks, which is currently held by the dwarves. You also want to start looking at expanding your under empire and maintaining a steady food source. Now you do that through various buildings, both in the under empire and in cities, but again, it's just about balancing when to build your cities and when to build your armies. Luckily, at least in the early game, SKAVEN units are quite cheap. We are currently using the Radius mod pack 1 through 4, as well as a few other cosmetic mods and bits and pieces in between there. If y'all want to see me make a mod video, just let me know. And which lord do you want to see me do a video on this next? Because I like doing these videos, and at least as the previous Archaon video said, shown, y'all seem to enjoy watching them.
Run things. Tell all Queek comes.
Yes, Queek Headtaker. So, greenskins, dwarves, we're already at a pretty healthy bonus of, making 3k a turn. But again, you'll see immediately in the top right is Karak 8 Peak. So we immediately get -3 control by just not having this one settlement. So if we click the little faction, or the little Karak 8 Peaks button, I should say, it'll take us to the settlement, which is currently held by the Crooked Moon Mutinous Gits faction. So we're going to go to war with the Red Fangs first, and we're actually at war with them already, so we'll get that first fight out of the way. And then your main goal, the first one they put up on your how to play, is recapture the settlement of Karak 8 Peaks. establish undercities, food, spread Skaven corruption, and then use the underway. Skaven are one of the few factions that have the access to basically tunneling or going where other factions can't. So what would normally take me 2 turns to get to is just like, going up and around. I can instead go under. The Wood Elves, Greenskins, and the Dawe can also use something similar, as well as the Beastmen. So there are a couple of factions that can utilize this feature, but Skaven are one of them, and Queek Headtaker will take advantage of that. All right. Now, with the Radius mods, we do have scrap upgrades to our Clan Rats and Stormvermin units. As always, I'm going to embed the Lord with the army. With every campaign, you get a hero, your legendary Lord combo. I like to keep at least 1 to 2 extra Lords, especially in Skaven armies, because they help with leadership. And what you'll notice with Skaven is primarily focusing on their leadership. A lot of your units early game will route only to come back. So, luckily in this one, we got a decent run of things because we were able to ambush this basic army, so we'll be able to quickly overwhelm them. But again, this initial starting battle, you can just auto-resolve. I'm just fighting it to show you the mechanics and also Queek Headtaker's in-game model. But this is our main dude here. Our little rat guy. Let me post him away from all the other units just so he stands out. So, if you're wondering why they call him Headtaker, it's because he wears this rack of skulls and body parts on his back to intimidate his foes. And in his lore, you can see exactly in lore, in the canon, on who these skulls and hands and various parts belong to. He doesn't have any of his like legendary armors or unique items, but you do start off with a SKAVEN brew, which does help with your base attack. So again, a melee specialist from the get-go. We're just going to get a few units on this side. Since this is an ambush, you just want to sort of collapse on them as quickly as possible. We don't have any cavalry units, and the fastest units I think we have would be the Rat Ogres, but again, those guys don't really come in until later. But we're going to get everybody set up. We'll leave our Plague Claw catapults up here so they have an elevated firing position, and also they are a bit safer from any of their units, but primarily a melee-focused start.
Make corpse. Take hands.
We want to do our best to focus where we can and get the job done. Now, another unique feature of the SKAVEN is the Menace Below. The Menace Below is one of the more unique faction abilities, so every single SKAVEN army will have access to the Menace Below, and you can do that in the... I didn't show it enough in it beforehand, but I'll go back and get a screenshot and put it up here. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. As the Menace Below, you can summon 4 different units of Clan Rats. There is a bit of a cooldown of 45 seconds, but the really fun ability is they can summon from anywhere. So if you got a pesky ranged unit or some artillery in the back line that you just can't seem to flank around to, the Menace Below is a great way to deal with that. So like if I want to lock down these Ara boys, I'm going to just pop these guys up right here so that they can just rip them apart. So they'll sprout up from the ground like a couple of evil plants and immediately start attacking the unit. If you spawn it in a unit, you'll have to direct them. They won't just auto attack, but either way, you get yourself off to a good start. So our chieftain is currently fighting this guy one-on-one and losing because he's an orc big boss, and he does a lot of damage. He's got good armor, but his army is currently all routing, mainly because we outnumber them and we're in slightly better positioning. Now, we're going to try and take out these goblin wolf chariots. They're some of the chariots aren't the fastest, but the goblin wolf archers can be quite quick. So we want to try and lock those down. Again, we're going to pop up another menace below. Just play it smart and safe. And then we're going to have Queek and our chieftain kind of wombo combo on the big boss. I'm actually going to get my chieftain out of there because he's getting kind of shredded up. But we got Queek in there, thankfully. We'll pop his little ability a little too late. But, you know, we won the battle. Typically, you'll see a power scaler up here, see what's what, but I accidentally set the difficulty to legendary, so we're kind of stuck with it. And we're just having our archers, and then our plague claws are just firing at will. That's typically what I do for artillery, unless it's like anti-large specifically, but if it's just catapults or what have you, then I'm just like, have at it, fire at will. But that's the gist of it. In an ambush battle type situation, you just want to surround your opponent and eliminate their lord quickly just to affect their leadership even further. And only having 29 losses as a SKAVEN faction is huge. Expect heavy losses in most fights, in late game especially, because a lot of late game armies, even against the AI, will overpower you unless you also have high tier units or your weapons teams. Weapons teams include poison wind globadiers, warp fire flamethrowers, rattling guns, and javelins, I believe. I got to look at the specific unit, but one of them is basically a sniper class that's good for targeting, or a sniper weapons team that's good for targeting enemy leaders and larger monsters. But yeah, that's Queek Headtaker. He is a melee specialist. You want to get him in the fight. If anything, try to get a warp block engineer. He does not like gray seers when you recruit them. So just be cognizant of that on when you're recruiting heroes. And it'll give you a pop-up, and you'll get different missions as you go along just to keep you somewhat active. So we're going to take this settlement real quickly. It's a decisive victory. This one I'm just going to auto-resolve. And then you can either decide to expand your under-empire, sack, raise, or loot and occupy. This is one of my favorite features of the SKAVEN. So like, if I just wanted to occupy this settlement at its max level, I could. But I don't really have the food for it and do not want to take the food shortage debuff, or nerf, I should say, because the less food you have, the worse your army is going to, worse your faction is going to perform. So always try to be at least in the yellow, if not the green, because the second you start going orange and red, you start taking pretty annoying, like, taxes and punishments, essentially, faction-wide in all armies, because you don't have enough food to feed them. So we'll just loot and occupy at tier 1. And you really want to save the higher loot and occupies for, like, the province capital, because that's where you can get more buildings, ergo earn more money, and making the food investment worth it. And usually after big battles, you'll get a plus 11 to food, and you can see where you're getting food from. Okay, our captives, looting, rituals, so on and so forth. Again, feel free to pause the video and read out, just so you can learn where and when you can get food from. So we're just going to get a fairly basic build out. We can now level up Queek. So again, his are going to be fairly specialized towards melee troops. You know, +5 armor for SKAVEN slaves and clan rats. Give yourself more leadership, cause fear. Getting the frenzy ability is very good, as long as your leadership remains high. So again, whenever you're fighting with Queek Headtaker, try to keep him on a one-on-one with other heroes. Because he doesn't have necessarily the slaying power in terms of like wide-arching hits and whatnot to take out mass amounts of troops, like you know, like an Archaon or a Taurox or a Scarbrand, you know, he's a little guy, so he's better in the one-on-one fight rather than going up against like a whole unit of swordsmen. Eventually, we'll get quests for his Warp Shard armor, which gives him his unique, you know, scarlet red armor, and then his Dwarf Gouger weapon, but these unlock at rank 7 and 12, respectively. But yeah, this is Queek. You get a couple of early weapons and whatnot, so I'm going to reassign these just so they're all on my leader. Eventually, you'll get buffs for specific units, which are ancillaries, but at the end of the day, you want quantity, and already starting off with 6 recruitment slots is pretty nice. Luckily, we are running the Radius mod, so we have a few extra unique units, like the Plague Monks with shields for right now. But if I open up our building browser, you can start to see the weapons teams and the different units available through the Radius mod. So Rat Ogres and Poison Wind Mortars, which are some of the strongest ranged units in the game, especially the Regiment of Renown for that specific unit. Recruiting different lords and ranged units. But, you know, build the army that you want to, and that is going to do well against the enemy you're facing. So for like the dwarves have great siege weapons and heavy armor. So you want armor piercing and flankability, because like the Skaven, the dwarves don't really have any cavalry units or fast-moving units that can intercept ranged units until late game. They do have their helicopters, which can be a bit of a nuisance, but again, you have your Rat Ogres. You should be able to get that are great for flanking and interrupting ranged fire, as well as just being anti-infantry. But with the Skaven, again, we're going to go with quantity over quality, so we're just going to recruit a bunch of these Plague Monks with shields, and then the rest will be Clan Rats. I typically go Spearmen just for the anti-large. They do have slightly less melee attack, strength, and charge bonus, but again, I'm just going for the anti-large because everything's larger than them. And especially when going up against the greenskins, I don't want to have to deal with their big boy riders or what have you, which can be very annoying. Like every faction, they have a research tree. This is one of the more expansive research trees in the game. You can't really unlock the research until you build certain buildings, and that'll be highlighted by this little red building button. Like, it requires a very specific building to start unlocking it, but like any faction's research, it gives buffs to different wolf rat to different units, from everything from wolf rats to your weapons teams, as well as campaign buffs, movement, so on and so forth. So take your time, plot out your research tracks and what you want to focus first, and go from there. Obviously, the later you get in the tech tree, the higher or the more beneficial and bigger the upgrades really are. Like getting plus 10 armor for your weapons teams, and then plus 5 for your storm vermin is really nice. And then plus armor, weapon strength, missile strength, so on and so forth. You get the idea. Just almost forgot to include that little tidbit, as well as the overview of Skaven corruption, just to give you sort of an overview of what all you're hitting. The Skaven struggle to have trustworthy alliances, both with one another and other factions, because the Skaven are just known as an untrustworthy faction. So try to build alliances early, because you can get quickly overwhelmed, both with other Skaven factions and potentially some of the factions nearby that you're not already at war with, such as the dwarves and the greenskins, because they can quickly build up and overwhelm you if you start going to war with everyone. But yeah, that's the Skaven. Expand your under empire. Build up your food stocks and slowly take over the world. Wish you luck in your campaigns. If you enjoyed the video, once again, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And let me know which lord you'd like to see me, kind of go over next. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.